Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Rusa Aftab from Department of Botany, Lahore College, Women University, Lahore. The course I am teaching is Recent Trends in Ethnobotany to MS class, semester 2, and the topic I am going to discuss today is Sources of Data and Methods of Study. Let's start it. Sources of information depicting past and present relationship of plants and human beings are the major tools of study for ethnobotanical information collection. Schultes in 1962 and Jane in 1964 mentioned the sources are archaeological, literary, herbarium and field resources. These are all different resources through which we can collect the ethnobotanical information. From archaeological resources like in the past or old buildings there were some paintings of the plants. Next, in the literary or literature, the source and the utilization of the plants have been mentioned. Then in the herbaria there are different huge collections of plant materials have been stored. And then field resources through which we can visit certain areas and collect the information from different people or local people living in those areas. These resources may vary and depend upon the interest, training and objectives of the investigators or explorers. There are different resources through which we can collect the ethnobotanical information. Number one is fossils. Fossils, different kind of plant remains of the past, seen to be the only major tool for the collection, identification and documentation of plants used by people of pre and prehistoric periods. Such type of specialized studies are generally known as paleo-ethnobotanical studies. What is paleobotany? This is the branch of botany dealing with the recovery and identification of plant remains from geological context and their use for the biological reconstruction of past environment and the evolutionary history of plants. Next is types of plant fossils. Number one is corpullites. These are fossilized droppings of animals. Provide another tool. They are analyzed what feed were being consumed by animals in ancient times. For example, Bribel Sahani Institute of Paleobotany, which is present in Lucknow, is one of the best institute for such studies in India. Then after corpullites, petrified fossils, or which is prepared or produced through petrification of or mineralized plants. This is the original cell of the plant tissue that is retained by means of some minerals like silica, etc. These minerals have infiltrated by the tissues. Sometimes the material of original plant may be preserved, for example, coal balls, silicified woods, etc. Next is cast on incrustations. In this type of plant fossil, the form of plant is preserved as a cast. The cast results from the liking of a cavity formed by decay of tissues of plant parts. Next is compressed fossils or compressions. In this type of plant fossil, the external form of plant modifies and leaves impressions on the sediment which overlie it. Next is compacted fossils or mummified fossils, which are produced through compaction or mummification. The plants on their parts get compressed by a vertical pressure against one another. Mostly plant rudiments found in pea and coal as compactions. Coal or coal balls are the important sources of plant fossils. Coals are irregular or subspherical mass of calcium or magnesium carbonates or some other mineral matter. This is the picture of compressed fossil on the left side, whereas compacted fossil on the right. Next is impression. This is the method of fossil formation. In this type of fossil, the roots, stems, leaves, fruits and seed are preserved as impressed form or in the form of impressions in such a fashion that they seem to be the actual dried specimens laid on the stone. Next is amber. These are produced by coniferous plants, exudates, resinous substances. Coniferous plant like in cones or in the pinus plant, you may see there is some gum like excretion from the plant, which is being stored, which is being stoned or hardened in the form of a fossil. It drops on the floor of forest, it accumulates and hardened over ages. Insects, fragments of plants and other animals get preserved in it and become fossilized. It is called as amber. On the left side you may see the picture of amber fossils, whereas on the right side this is the impression of a leaf on the stone. After fossils, number 2 is archaeological resources. India has a rich trier of archaeological sculptures. Writing on the stones or on the stupas of different periods are also available. This is archaeological resources, as I have already told. These are the small paintings of the plants or the small imprints of the plants present on the old buildings like tombs or forts, etc. These sculptures and writings are sometimes having depiction of plants and provide indication of their uses in ancient times. Recently, an attempt has been made by Sithole in 1966 to describe some plants from archaeological materials of gateways of the Great Stupa of Sanchi and railing of Bhurat Stupa in 200 BC. His work deals with about 40 representations of plants. Archaeological Survey of India can be the best source for procuring such materials. These studies are helpful in identification and documentation of plants in historical perspectives. The studies on carvings of the plants, temples on rocks in caves are also interesting aspects of archaeological resources. Next is obsolete literature and travelogues. Obsolete literature, this is also known as grey literature or the literature that has been lost through any agent. A number of published or handwritten documents lie in the holdings of libraries, museums and individuals and actually remains neglected for a longer time. Such literature is sometimes called as grey literature. Sometimes information in such documents is very vague. Mostly local names are mentioned, spellings are wrong and often lack phonetic indications. These provide valuable information as to how some plant species influence the social and cultural lifestyles of tribes. If proper studies are initiated on ancient literature, vast data on plants and their different uses can be known. Now, what is a travelogue? Travelers mentioned local uses of plants in their writings or travel accounts. Although travelogues doesn't use exhaustive list of plants, but they use sometimes names of dominant plants, medicinal plant species and other economically important species. Next is Sanskrit literature. Sanskrit literature can be said to present tradition of Indian culture through ages. Preliminary studies on some floras in Sanskrit literature have recently been made by Banerjee and Sensarma. They have listed more than 1000 plant names are mentioned in Ramayana, Rigveda, Mahabharata and various Puranas and Sastras, etc. But the identification of various species is not easy because sometimes only names are given without mentioning even a single character. Next is sculptures on temples. For the ethnobotanical studies, the sculptures on temples and also on other religious monuments are good source of information. The arts and paintings depict number of plant species known during those times. Shakti Gupta 1986 of Delhi University conducted an extensive survey on the sculptures on temples of India. She unfolded many interesting details on the relationship between the tribal and plants shown in the sculptures. Next is ethnographies. Some ethnographers have extensively dealt with the plants used by tribals for various purposes and their ethnographies are useful for ethnobotanical studies. The advantage of ethnographies is that such works are written by qualified anthropologists and the relationship is usually dealt in an exhaustive and scientific manners. Next is gazetteers. These are the important plants of a particular region are usually highlighted. Sometimes comparison of the data in very old and the recent gazetteers provides interesting information on change in uses and occurrence of plants. Gazetteers are like some small monograph or small information piece of information. Next is herbaria and museum. Herbarium is the collection or preservation of pressed, labeled and dried plant specimens, arranged specimens by a classification scheme. Museum is preservation of dead and decaying plants and animals. The plant collectors notes on labels of herbarium sheets and museum specimens are understood to be one of the best sources of collection of valuable ethnobotanical information. Both these sources contain plant collections from various parts of the world. The collection provides useful data on the place or locality of collection along with date, time of flowering and fruiting. These herbaria sheets also inform on the vernacular names and economic importance of the collected plant specimens. The information has more value than from other sources. It is the first hand information. The data concerning locality, people and time are also noted along collector notes on herbarium sheets or museum specimens, and the botanical identity of the plant is fixed. The biggest and the oldest herbarium of India is Central National Herbarium of Botanical Survey of India, whereas the largest herbarium in Pakistan is the National Science Herbarium in Islamabad, Pakistan. Next is the reports of forest departments. Various units of the forest departments usually prepare annual reports and working plans for the extraction of major and minor forest products. Through these reports, a number of useful information can be gathered by scrutiny of old and new reports. These reports contain botanical or well-known commercial names which help much in identification of plant species. Next is field studies. Field study is just like I have mentioned in my previous lecture for the collection of ethnobotanical information. By field studies and field valuable data can be generated in the form of tribal areas or ethnobotanical area. Through field visits, one can observe the way they use various plants and plant products for different purposes, and obtained data can be used for producing food, medicine and textile, etc. Field observations comprise of two stages. Number one is involvement of tribals who are well known with use of the plant in the specific area. Number two is collection of useful plants of a specific area and then showing these plants to tribals to get additional information or their importance. Through these two stages, vernacular names of the plants will also be recorded. This is all about the methods of study for the collection of ethnobotanical data and material. Here are some recommended books for the preparation of your notes, and that's it. Thank you.